Christine,
Hi.
thank you for joining me.
Finally.
I know it's taken a while, but it's been worth it. I'm so looking forward to this.
Me too.
Tell me, who is Christine McGuiness?
Christine McGuiness is a work in progress. She's still in development.
Bless you. Aren't we all?
Yeah.
It's a journey, right? And it's
Definitely.
been a journey for all of us, but in context of you, it's like, it's almost, I suppose there's a whole, I'm going to bring up the whole autism thing straight away, because that's something that I really wanted to talk to you about. The minute I found out about you, watched the documentary, started reading about you, there's so much you've done there to help other people coming through on a journey that could have been really difficult, which ultimately yours has been, to make it easier for them. And I think that's been really brave. But I think a lot of it, you probably just lived in the moment, didn't know any different until you found out. So tell me about a young Christine coming through a journey that, dare I say, you were misunderstood, into a life that now you're flourishing and thriving in.
Obviously, more recently in the last couple of years, I've spoke more and more about my own diagnosis and my 3 children. They're all autistic. And I didn't realise the impact that it was going to have when I was doing that, which I'm happy about. I think if I did know the impact it was going to have, I might have got scared. But I'm so happy that I have shared my story and the children's, because it, like you said, it has helped so many. And now, being completely honest, when I look back to how I was as a child, I wish there was somebody like me talking about it.
There's no role model, was there? There was no one to look at.
I'd never heard of autism. I'd never heard of ADHD. I'd heard of, children having additional needs. And when I was at school, I was kind of put in that category of being difficult or a challenge. The teachers didn't really know what to do with me sometimes. I would get into trouble over things that were just being misunderstood. Not being able to verbally communicate how I was feeling and why I was acting like in certain ways, not wanting to go into the school canteen, being late, avoiding classes, could come across as being a difficult, naughty child.
Naughty?
Yeah. When for me it was quite simply, I struggled with the sensory overload, with the smell, with the cues, with the busyness, the change in the food and the people every single day. And it got to a point where I couldn't cope with it. I couldn't deal with it. If the school teacher would change for the lesson, for me it was too much, so I would not go to the class. Things like that, of course, any school teacher is going to go, she's skipping class again.
You're a skiver.
Yeah, and I never understood myself why I was doing it, and would feel quite awkward about saying anything anyway. So I'd choose to just say nothing, but then that would lead to me getting into trouble. And yeah, sadly, I did leave education quite early. I left just before I was 14.
I sense you regret that. And the reason why I say it is it hasn't affected you in what is now a career you're flourishing in, use that word again. But I've heard you say before that if I'd known, I might have done, I could have done. Does that play on your mind? And again, there's probably countless people that have not been understood at school, being considered naughty, that have, dare I say, fallen by the wayside, if you know what I mean. Life doesn't support that. You don't fall between those sort of pillars, if you like.
I regret maybe not speaking up more, and I regret not being understood, and that's not my fault, and it's also not the teacher's fault, because we're talking about over 20 years ago, don't we?
When you say, oh bless you, when you say not speaking out though, like, to express yourself with autism doesn't actually come naturally, right? What I mean by that is, how do you articulate yourself? Because you are not actually understanding your own behavior. And girls having autism and ADHD wasn't even necessarily a thing. There were doctors suggesting that women can. That's only changed in the last 20 years, right?
Yeah. So doctors and paediatricians, I just thought that it was a male-only condition, and they even thought that it was just young boys that would be hyperactive and be making loads of noise and all over the place. And obviously we know now that that's not the case, and especially for women and girls, we tend to hide it more. We want to fit in. We want to be like everybody else. And in some ways, I still mask. It's called masking, and I still do it even though I'm aware of it. And in some ways it's good, because it means that I will do things that I'm not really authentically comfortable with like going to events or busy places, I know that I can pretend. I can pretend for a bit. I can smile. I can do the red carpet. I can go to a busy event and I can act fine. But it's also not a good thing because it takes its toll on your energy. I tend to burn out quite a lot when I'm doing too much. But it's in me that I do want to do what everybody else is doing. I do want to feel comfortable in those places, and I just know that the more I do it, it gets easier. And there are times where I will go along and I will enjoy things, but because I'm understanding myself more, I will put things in place that will help me. Like I'll tend to use the same people, the same team. I will try and stay in the same hotel if I can, just because I know when I get there, I know what it's like.
It's a known
comfortable
quantity.
and yeah, just keeping things familiar as much as possible, and then not feeling rude or like. I always feel quite unsocial if I go somewhere like to a dinner and 20 minutes in, if I just am finding it all too much. I used to just sit and painfully like smile through it. Whereas now I will just say to everybody, I'm just going to have 10 minutes. I need to make a phone call. Do you mind? And I'll leave. I'll have a bit of space and then I'll go back in, and that works for me. And I'm trying to just not be apologetic about being me.
But that allows other people to do that as well.
And it's something that doesn't come naturally to me. I feel quite selfish sometimes if I say that I need a little bit of time out, or you know, if I need to just eat on my own when I'm at work. You know, sometimes I'll be working with a big group of people and it's really social to all eat and make friends and chat over dinner, and people seem to just do that like with no effort whatsoever. For me, it takes quite a lot. And yeah, I feel more comfortable now in just saying if it's too much, it's okay.
You've built a habit to do that, and it's taken you probably a few years to build that habit. But by building that habit, you've also built confidence. And if you want me to tell you now, from sitting here with you now, you're radiating it. There's a real nice contentment without any ego. How did you do that? When did you start putting those steps in place where I'm going to do this for me? I'm going to be selfish, which actually isn't necessarily selfish. It's what I need to do for my own mental health. When did you consciously start doing that?
It was seeing my children at school. It was a couple of years ago. I'd just been diagnosed and I hadn't spoken about it publicly. I'd kept it to myself for a while. And I'd agreed to do a TV show, The Real Full Auntie, and I was doing it for my mum. My mum had just been diagnosed with breast cancer. And I really wanted to do it, but I knew that at the end of the show, I had to perform in front of a lot of people, and it was going to be filmed and it's going to be shown on telly. I'm not a performer. I'm not a singer. I'm not an actress. I'm a mum. I've done bits of telly, but I'm just me. And I was so scared. I had the biggest meltdown. I was absolutely petrified, and it wasn't about even the performance side of things. It was the audience and the nerves and the anxiety and thinking I'm going to let everybody down. I'm not going to remember the steps, and what if I mess it up? And it's quite typical for autistic ADHD females in particular to really be quite hard on themselves and overthink. And it stopped me. It stopped me from doing things that I wanted to do. And during that time when we were filming, I think it was a week before we had to film the final dance, my children had their nativity and I went to watch them, and
Oh,
I'm very proud of them. For 3 years before that nativity, they could not sit in the assembly. They would come in the room, they'd last a couple of minutes and they'd leave, they'd be fidgeting, they'd be upset. And this one time they got up on stage and they said all of the words and they performed and they remembered everything and they smiled, and I just thought, wow, you know, they're doing it. They can do it, so I need to do it. And they're always my biggest inspiration. But it was just that feeling of, I need to lead by example. These children are watching me every day. They're seeing mummy and what mummy's doing, and I want them to look at mummy and see that mummy goes to work and mummy has friends and mummy drives and mummy's independent, and I want them to not be scared of anything. And it was them who taught me to not be scared.
I love that.
And I want to keep doing everything I'm doing for them because of them.
Yeah, I love that. So I didn't mean to make you in any way emotional, but there's an authenticity about you. There's a raw realness to you that clearly came out then, and that I think is what has drawn me to you and drawn so many people to you. And you've got this huge following now as well, where people, dare I say, may have changed their behaviours. And this is the key thing: put themselves out of their comfort zone. We talked about it before we started filming, right? And you seem to be doing that in spades now. That influence your kids had on you to then be the best version of yourself if you can. You seem to have not only embraced that. There's so many things you're doing. Let's talk about Hunted. What made you want to do that, and how much did you enjoy it?
So again, Celebrity Hunted is a show for cancer. It's for Stand Up to Cancer, and with that being so prominent, sadly, in my family with my mum and my aunties, I didn't want to say no to it. Also, there's the experience of going doing something fun and something different and something that you're not going to do in your everyday life. But then when I really looked into it, I kind of went, okay, so sounds fun, but I'm going to have no routine. I don't know where I'm sleeping. I don't know what food I'm eating. And it's going to be different every single day. My anxiety can get the best of me sometimes. But I couldn't possibly say no because I want to keep pushing myself. So I said yeah, and I went for it. And I went with my very, very best friend, Duncan. And it was there on the run that I really realised how important friendships are, because I'd always struggled to make friends, and I never had friends at school. I never had friends in my teenage years or throughout my 20s.
That's heartbreaking to hear that.
I don't have any friends now other than Duncan's my closest friend. Obviously, he's a work friend, and I see him as I'm at work and when I'm in London. But for a close friend, somebody to call, I've got nobody at all in my life. And I just always put it down to me being a loner. And it was only when I was diagnosed with autism that I realised that actually that's just something I struggle with that other people don't struggle with. Neurotypical people just have these skills that I don't have. So for me, that's okay, because I understand why. It's not because I'm odd or weird or unsocial or not a good friend. It's simply just that it's something I struggle with. It's more of a challenge. But knowing that makes me want to do more and want to try more and want to learn how to build those kind of relationships. And with Duncan, it's just happened so naturally and so easy because he just understands and he's patient. And I think if you're autistic or ADHD and you've got somebody in your life that is willing to take the time and hold your hand along the way and just be there for you, it's amazing what you can achieve. It really is amazing.
Special friendship by the sound of that.
The best.
I love that. And you've got it's heartbreaking to hear that, but you've obviously been able to build a resilience, a really tough personality around yourself, because at times you must have felt really lonely, really isolated.
Yeah.
Have I got that right?
Yeah, of course. Life's been challenging in the last couple of years. There's been lots of changes, like some of the biggest changes I think any woman can ever experience. And that's a lot to deal with when you've got nobody to speak to. In some ways, it's good, I suppose, because it means, you know, when I'm making decisions, they're on my own. Because again, being autistic, I can be quite easily led out. I can be easily influenced, and that's something that is hard to accept about myself, because I like to think I'm a strong, confident woman, and you know, all of my decisions throughout my life have always been my own, but they're not, if I'm being completely honest. You know, I do kind of just want to let somebody else make choices for me because I'm scared of making the wrong choices.
But right now, Christine McGuiness is the most mature, most kind of, you've got the most perspective you could possibly have.
Yeah.
You know, you got married really young.
Yeah.
A big chunk of adult life that could have been finding yourself then was then spent becoming a mother, being a wife.
Yeah.
You're on the back end of a divorce, and right now, facing forwards, it does feel like you're thriving.
The only me I've ever known for 15, 16 years, from when I was 19 up until now, was to be the mum and the wife, and that's changed. And the last time it was just me, just Christine, was when I was a teenager. So obviously I'm completely different now to how I was back then anyway, and the whole world and life is just different now. So I'm navigating a whole new path, and I'm trying to just be excited about it rather than scared.
You've got a compass now as well, right? You actually have, you know, I mean, you've got direction, you've got purpose, and that purpose comes from probably some really hard times, you know, not understanding yourself, being misunderstood, getting into trouble, getting yourself into trouble, to now ultimately be able to face forward. And I want to ask you, without you necessarily needing to be specifically open about this, to then be able to let someone really important back into your life. Are you in that place? Are you able to? No. So you're still working on Christine, building those layers, which I can feel, but you're not. You're not ready to let anyone else into that space.
I honestly, I wish I could. I really wish I could. And I've been talking about it a lot recently with Duncan about trusting people and letting people in and trying to just bring my walls down. It just feels like every time I do, something bad or negative will happen.
Is that in your head, or is that actually happening? Or a bit of both?
Yeah, it's very, very rare that I will let somebody close to me anyway, in friendship, in work, in personal life. I'm very protective of myself and my children and my home and my personal life. It just feels like maybe I just haven't been around the right people yet, and it's going to take me a while to completely be myself with anybody. But I'm not in no rush. I'm still figuring out me. I've like I said, I've never really just been me outside of being mummy and wife. I'm still figuring out who Christine is.
But you're doing a lot as well, like Celebrity Hunted, you know, TV shows before that. It feels like you've kept yourself busy in a good way.
Yeah.
There's things you could have done that weren't putting you out there, meeting new people, putting yourself out your comfort zone. So that for me feels like it's a transition of time, and the universe works in a way where that will be sort of happen when it needs to. But putting time into yourself, you clearly keep super fit. And we know that keeping physically fit helps here. How much of what you do to keep physically fit is to be strong and look good, and how much of it is for your kind of mental state?
0% of it is to do with the outside,
It's all
the body. It has always been, and I think always will be for me, time out and just headspace and time to switch off and not think about what day it is this week and where I need to go. Okay, the kids need pea kits and what snacks to
you leave all of that out and you go fully present into
go and have a bit of time.
And what do you do? What works for you?
There's been times I will go to the gym and just sit and not do anything, and there's times that I will go and burn off any bit of energy that I've got because it goes over and over in my head. It every day is different, and I just try and make sure whatever I'm doing, whether it's to benefit me physically on the inside, the outside is a bonus, or if it's just to still benefit me on the inside by just having some calm and some quiet. It's just making sure that I do have a bit of time out for myself, because I fall into the very bad habit of saying yes to everything. I'm a people pleaser and I don't want to let people down. And sometimes I will overbook and double book things and don't give myself a minute, and then my stuff falls behind. So I'm trying to just get better at doing that. But one thing I always make sure I've got time for is just to either do some yoga, do some weights, do slow and steady, just do something for me and my body mentally.
And do you have a routine? Because routine's really important from an autistic point of view, right? So do you do stuff in the morning before the kids are up, or do you kind of plan it in after they've gone to school and make sure that time is made available? Because you are busy, right? And you are juggling 3 kids.
Yeah.
So when do you do it? And are you in a position where you try and do the same thing every day, or you deliberately kind of vary it?
It's really interesting. The more I'm learning myself about autism and ADHD, they're both completely different. So for me, autism, routine would be absolutely beautiful. It would be perfect. I would have a stress-free life if I had a routine. But my ADHD would get bored, and ADHD wants to go and try something new. And why don't we do a different time in a different class? And it's a constant contradictory in my head. When I can stick to a routine, it's lovely. I'll try and go to the gym or do some yoga after I've done the school run. So my focus in the morning, of course, is the children, getting them to school happily. And if I can try and put an hour in for myself before I start work and phone calls and everything else, that's lovely. It just really depends if I'm having one of those days where I'll drop the kids off. It might be that the sun's shining a bit brighter and my ADHD will go, oh, why don't you just go for a hike up that hill? Let's just go and get your music and do that. And then I'll do that and I'm completely off track and all of my work falls behind. And it's me, it's how I am. And I accept it. I accept the way I am. It's maybe not great for other people.
No, I get that. If there's one thing you really enjoy doing, if there's one thing, dare I say, you swear by, would it be yoga, Pilates, the gym, that specific kind of workout? Is there one thing you just really like doing?
It's purely as in exercise
Yeah,
terms, or
yeah. To get the exercise out of it, but also you feel good after it, which could be the endorphins. It could be running up that hill, getting fresh air, getting amongst nature. So is there one thing that makes you feel good?
for me, I'd say the weight training is slow and steady. Just slow and steady. I can have the music calmer with that. It's not fast paced. My heart's not beating. I'm not out of breath, sweating. I do it. It feels. I think I quite like the pull, like the pain a little bit. Kind of feels nice for me.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that's definitely what I would say I feel
Yeah.
the best after.
I'm just interested because there's so many different people that will say different things work for them, and there's especially people that are achieving a lot, packing a lot in, which you are, and successful. And I think you know this from watching other extreme life stories, but I always want to ask someone, I want to ask you what your definition of success is and how different that might be to a young Christine.
Success to me is just having a happy home, a happy, warm home with water and food, happy children, with noise, but not too much noise.
That's tricky.
That to me is successful. All I ever wanted was to be a mum. So in some ways that hasn't changed. I've got what I wanted to achieve in that sense. I wanted to be a mum. I couldn't wait to be a mum. So yeah, I've got what I wanted in that way. But now,
Lovely.
knowing my children and knowing myself, there's a hell of a lot more that I want to do. Not that I need to do, but that I want to, like show my children what a successful, independent single mum is.
Yeah.
That is working and that is keeping busy and is juggling the school runs and looking after the children.
Well, kids learn by what they see, right?
Exactly. And I want them to know that, it's okay if mummy wants to go away for a couple of days on a girls' trip and just have a little bit of time out. That's okay. I don't need to feel guilty or apologise. They have time with either my mum or with their daddy while I go to work, and that's fine. And I think in some ways that's successful. Just passing on that message to my children to grow up and know that it's okay.
You're inspiring them. And actually, I've used that that term like role model as well. Of course, as their mum, that's exactly who you are to them. But for countless children now at school coming through, the diagnosis of your children to then understanding yourself, to then understand how broken the system is. Have you seen any fundamental changes in the schooling system to help neurodiverse children, ADHD, autistic children, that have suffered for years and been misunderstood? Are you seeing that changing now? Because I know that's so important to you.
Yeah.
And you're raising that awareness, you're campaigning, but is it changing?
It is.
That's great.
I think there's a lot more that could be done, but I'm just grateful that things are changing. I've seen a massive difference from when I very, very first spoke about it years ago to how it is now. Just people even hearing about autism and ADHD compared to a few years ago, there's definitely a lot more. The understanding needs working on, but I think you can't truly understand it unless you either have it or live with someone who's neurodiverse. I'm seeing big differences in hospitals just with visual signs around. Even going to service stations when I'm driving from Cheshire to London, I'll stop off and I'll see the sunflower lanyard in the window, which represents hidden disabilities. So there definitely is a lot more, but I think there's a long way to go. There's a lot of children's places, for example, businesses that will offer autism hour, like, play centres, swimming lessons, things like that. And that's lovely that they are being inclusive, but I think there needs to be a lot more. Autism hour is not enough and it's not fair.
What would you do if you were the health minister, or we could have a meeting with the health minister now, not the health minister, the education minister and the health minister as well, potentially, and make those changes? What would you do? Because you've got that insight. You're a mum of 3 children. You've been through that whole journey yourself of being misunderstood. I want to know what you put in place.
I think school especially needs a lot more support, which I know is down to a lack of funding. But there are ways around it. We're not just crying out for special needs schools. There are thousands of schools across the country that could just have an additional unit or a class or somewhere that's for time out. I don't think it's the right thing to completely separate one child from another. It's just maybe blending, mixing a little bit more, but having the option for those with additional needs to have time out as and when they need it. If they do need extra support in classroom, that needs to be more available. There is help there, there just isn't enough.
No, I'm interested because it's that whole, if you look at sort of what's being shown as broken, how quickly can change be made in a bit of a static government, and kind of legislative changes that take ages when actually it's crying out for help. It could potentially reduce the amount of people in prison, where there's a direct correlation of people that don't conform to society, that are misunderstood, that then commit crimes that are actually, they don't know how to control their own behaviours. You could get a massive reduction in the outlay on the prison systems that filters back to actually saving money in the long term if you solve the crisis at the outset, because so many of those neuro patterns are formed in children between sort of 2, 3, 4, 5 and 7, 8, 9 years old. Crucial ages.
Yeah,
That's so frustrating to me,
yeah,
just looking in, let alone to you having been through it and going through it with your own children.
yeah. I think it's 70% of autistic adults are out of work, and that's such a shame because I know, I completely get why, and it's so easy to change and it's not expensive.
I
It's
didn't know
just
that.
the system is broken. So autistic adults, there will be, the majority of them will go for a job that they will probably be overqualified for, and then other people, neurotypical people, will go for the same job. The neurotypical ones will get the job before the neurodiverse, and it's not because we are not capable of doing it. It will be because we probably won't even go to the interview because we'll be too scared. We'll be too scared to meet somebody and speak and then talk about ourselves and how good we are at something, because that's just not natural to us. It's quite simple. If autistic adults can feel comfortable enough to be able to say to a potential boss, I'm autistic or I'm ADHD, I would love to work for you, these are my skills. If they could do it over email or over phone call, and just feel comfortable enough to say, I'm going to be overly anxious in an interview and I don't want to downplay how amazing that could be for your company. If that was just okay to be able to explain like that, they would more than likely get the job. But yeah, sadly, the majority of them will do what I used to do: pull up, get there, and not get out the car.
Do you know what's really interesting about this as well is the amount of people I've met in my professional life and through extraordinary life stories that have got ADHD, that have excelled. They have ultimately not been understood and not understood themselves, to then ultimately, I don't want to refer to it as a superpower because that's a little bit
Yeah,
clickbaity,
I'm not
but
keen.
they have harnessed it. They've harnessed their strength. They found it, but they've had to find it through adult life. They haven't found it in school, but they've harnessed a strength, let's use that terminology, to then absolutely fly and be incredibly successful in something that they've got that hyper focus in. So actually, if someone was brave enough
Yeah,
to and authentic enough to be able to put forward that this is my scenario, and that was understood, well, actually, now that I understand that, you understand a lot more, and then this person
yeah,
could be exceptional.
yeah, absolutely. It's just they need to be given the chance. I honestly believe for autistic and ADHDs, if you follow your passion and your strengths and what you love, you are going to absolutely fly, because I know how much I can hyper focus on something if I absolutely love it. When I'm trying to do stuff that I'm kind of half-hearted in, it's going to get lost. I'm going to keep going back to it, and eventually it'll be in the bottom of a pile and I'll never look at it again. But stuff that I really, really love and I enjoy, I will I will be the best in the room at that.
Love that. You'll make it happen and you'll absolutely excel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for people, you know, who are going for a job, they need to be able to say to the potential boss that, you know, I'm fully qualified for this role. I could be an asset to your company. I might just need to have lunch somewhere else, you know, or I might just need a little bit of time out now and again. Is that okay? And if
There's a lot of strength in that as well, isn't there? That way.
it would be more beneficial
Yeah.
to the companies to hire the person who is more than capable of doing the job and is passionate about it, and allow them a little bit of time out now and again, and help them stick to a routine. Maybe shift patterns that are not consistent wouldn't work for somebody. It really, really could help a lot of people.
What have you not done yet that you'd really like to do?
I want to feel more comfortable being more raw and more open. And I mean that not just with my work and my social media content, but just with myself. I think I'm getting there, and I'm very comfortable talking about like what we've spoke about, autism, ADHD, my love for my children.
There's a bit holding back, right?
Always.
That's a protection mechanism, though. I can identify with that. I'm as real and authentic as I can be and want to be right now, but there's just something that holds back, and it's it's a hard thing to break through. But I think you're doing it. I think you're doing it. You're putting yourself in uncomfortable situations where you're kind of being forced to have to be someone you haven't been before, and that creates really good behaviour.
I'd done a show called Pilgrimage with the BBC, and that was absolutely incredible. And I remember talking to a previous cast member and saying to her, "What do you think? Shall I do this? I'm not sure." And she was like, "Do it, but you're going to be bored. You're just going to walk all day. You'll be really, really bored." So it's like, okay, well, it's easy enough. It's exercise, it's walking, it's outdoors. I'll do it. And honestly, it was one of the most life-changing, most incredible experiences that I've ever had, because I've never just had time to switch off and really think about who I am and what I want. And Pilgrimage is all about going on a journey and kind of getting to the end of it and figuring out what life means to you, and what you think about the afterlife. And what I learned along the way, for me and my experience, was that our souls are energy, and it's what we leave when we go. And one of my main goals now is just to make sure that the energy I leave in this room around my children one day when I leave this earth, that it's good, positive energy, and it's helpful in some way to someone. And that's what I want.
From sitting here, I can feel your energy, your positive energy, and that's what so many people, I think, would agree with through watching everything you're doing, through following you on social media. You're putting out positive energy. That's a brilliant legacy to leave.
Thank you.
You've been awesome to talk to, Christine. Thank you. I know how busy you are, and you got your whole organising thing together at work, because you messaged me just before Christmas, and here we are. So thank you.
There's so much that I want to do. So I want to organise to make sure I can do everything that I want to do.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate you making this happen. I know how busy you are, so thank you,
No
Christine.
problem. Thanks
so much.